Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are actor Bjorn Johnson and actor-writer Tim Crouch. Bjorn Johnson is an award-winning actor, director, producer, acting teacher, and fight choreographer, and he does all of that in theater, film, and TV. He was born and raised in Minneapolis, went to high school in East Africa, earned a Bachelor of Arts from George Williams College, and studied at Circle in the Square, the Tisch School, and Juilliard. It seems like you always wanted to be an actor. Is that right?
Yeah, it sure is. I started really young. Being in Minneapolis, there's a lot of theater going on there, and we went to church across the street from the Guthrie Theater, and so it was easy to get snagged out of there.
The old Guthrie.
The old Guthrie.
Was the new Guthrie where the old Guthrie was?
No, the new Guthrie's down on the river, which is gorgeous, but the old Guthrie is adjoining the Walker Art Institute.
Well, now I know. Oh, I know where it was then, where the Walker is,
Yeah.
and then they moved. They have a fantastic building right on the river now. But what I was going to say is now I know why you knew hundreds of songs when you were a little boy. They said you were performing as a child.
That's true, and also because my father was a YMCA camp director as a kid.
Oh.
And at camp you sing before and after every meal, before and after every program. So it was.
So here's this 5-year-old.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So your family wasn't in show business though, were they?
The closest thing to show business in my family previous was an old Norwegian great uncle who was quite a drinker and would play his banjo in bars apparently for donations.
In Minneapolis or
well,
further?
he was in Minnesota when it was warm, and he would go south when it was cold.
Oh, is that right? So just take his drinks with him?
So I'm told. I never met him.
When you were learning to sing, and did you learn to sing in accents then? Because that's one of the things that you do so well. You have a lot of accents.
Well, thank you. I guess I didn't realize I had an accent when I was a kid. We ended up going to drama school and discovering this strong Minnesota accent I had.
But was it the Minnesota accent or was it other things?
At that point it was Minnesota. I really picked up on the accents as a kid in the theater.
But you talk about all those accents.
Yeah.
Did it help you a lot in acting?
I think the accents were a product of the same thing that helps me in the acting a lot, which is that by living in a third world country at that very malleable age, teenage years, it really changed my perspective entirely. And I think the thing that I learned from that experience was how much of life is a cultural agreement and not necessarily what I had previously thought was just the truth, or
other people,
reality, or the way it is.
Right.
And then learning by living in a third world country how much of what we just think is life is actually a cultural agreement.
But you talk about learning things as a young child or when you're in that position. And you're a mentor. You teach children that, well, I don't know what age you teach, but you have acting.
Adults. I teach adults, yeah.
Oh, you do? Directing and acting, right?
Yeah. I have had
adults, they're past the point.
Well, I have some very young adults. Actually, I don't really teach child actors, but I do have some actors who happen to be juveniles, but they're actors who just happen to be very, very young. They don't do that kind of kid acting.
What do you do in that acting class?
It's scene study and technique, and I'm not pitching a monolithic approach. It's not like the so-and-so method or the such and such
that's
approach.
What I wondered,
I use a mix of things over my experience, and I've had some incredible teachers.
You used to draw from them.
So I myself draw from a mix, and so I'm trying to help actors. I think it's important that someone does have a technique, but I'm not telling them what technique that they have to have. I'm trying to help them uncover what's effective for them.
Or bring something new to what they have already.
That's right.
Is that with the Open Fist Ensemble? Or
I joined my studio to the Open Fist just this year as an effort to support the theater. And
which is a theater that does fantastic work, doesn't it?
We're opening a show right now. We're about to open Stage Door by Kaufman and Ferber. So it's a
40s, is it 40s, 30s, 40s?
Yeah, and it's 25 people in the cast. Incredible set. Lots and lots of women's parts, which is always fun to see.
And then do you help teach some of those people? Do you
Yeah, a number of the people in the company are in my class, but the class is not restricted to the company. It's a public thing, and people get in by auditioning.
We talked about coming back from East Africa, and I think at that point, you were still young.
Yeah.
You went to see Colleen Dewhurst. And it was like a turning point in your life, I think.
Yeah, I had an idea that I was going to be adult and try to be responsible and do something else. And
what were you, 17?
Yeah,
adult.
Yeah, well, I was going to go into international relations because of my interest in politics, and I was getting scholarships from some pretty interesting schools. And then I saw Ben Gazzar and Colleen Dewhurst do Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and I thought to myself, any other idea I had besides being an actor is just lying to myself.
Is that right? You felt it right there?
I knew it. I absolutely knew it.
But you met with her.
It was so great. I was a shambles, and the not the casting director, rather the house manager came down and says, "Well, you people have to leave." I was there with my girlfriend and buddy. You people, and then he sees we're just a mess. He's like, "Oh, would you like to meet Miss Dewhurst?" Yes. So we go backstage. There's about 35 people. She's taking people about 4 at a time. Finally, there's
what was she doing? Just talking?
Just talking to her friends that were coming to visit her and whatever. There's probably still 18 of us or so left over. And she comes out. She goes, "I'm so sorry. I'd like to meet with each and every one of you." You know, it's gracious of her. So I go, and I'm waiting for a friend who had graduated early and was coming to meet me from Boston. He went to Emerson and was coming to meet me. I'm standing outside of what was then called Charlie's, next door to the Music Box Theater, where the show was.
Yeah.
And up the sidewalk comes walking Colleen Dewhurst. So I step out to her and I say, "Miss Dewhurst, excuse me. I mean, I'm an actor, so I don't usually accost people like this, but I just saw the show and it was so incredibly fun." And I start weeping again. And Colleen is like, "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" "I'm waiting for my friend Charlie at Charlie's." And she's like, "Well, let's go inside and get a drink." I was 18 now, so I was legal in New York. So we go in and she goes, the waiter comes over. "Yes, Miss Dewhurst." She goes, "Gin and tonic. What are you having?" I said, "Gin and tonic." And she sat there with me and talked to me we had 2 or 3 rounds of drinks. It was incredible. And then years later at the Williamstown Theater Festival, she came up to do Renovskaya, and I got to be in the show with her.
You're kidding.
And
was it planned?
Or
did you audition?
Totally. This is my. I'd been there a couple seasons already, so I was I was a veteran there at the Williamstown Theater Festival. And she came up, and what I did do to earn money there, through the summers, I ran a speakeasy for the company, and so she loved to come there after the shows. Yeah, that's right. And so she came there, and now what's great is I don't really truly believe it, but she she insisted that she remembered our encounter, and I had met her son in between there. I knew Campbell Scott. He was doing Romeo and Juliet with the girlfriend.
Isn't he?
He's great.
What a great actor.
And it's so marvelous to see his career. He's one of those guys who absolutely deserves it. He's got so much skill and so much commitment and so much class and
so
intention.
Plugged away, just under the radar, didn't he? Just work.
And never really traded in on his parents' notoriety, as far as I could ever see. Really, total
Randolph
meritocracy.
Scott was his
No,
father?
George C.
Oh, George C.
George C. and Colleen Dewhurst. Can you imagine?
That's right. No, I knew it was Randolph.
Can you imagine?
No.
How do you like that? George C. Scott and Colleen
Dewhurst. You do fight choreography too.
Yeah,
do you use that all the time?
I did it a lot in New York. I apprenticed to B.H. Barry, who's probably the preeminent stage combat choreographer.
So do they call you in all the time on every play?
In New York, they did all the time. Out here, I found that people got very confused between stage combat choreographers and stunt coordinators. And though I admire those guys, that's not what I do.
Well, what is this? What are the differences?
The difference between stunt coordination and stage combat is all what the actors will do for themselves.
Stage combat.
Yeah. Fight choreography is what
so
the
it
actors
doesn't
have to
even
do
have
by
to be
themselves.
fighting. It could be just talking.
Anything.
Right?
Well, it can be anything where you're physically at danger. For instance, when we did Private Lives on Broadway with Liz Taylor and Richard Burton, we staged the big breakfast fight.
Oh,
you know?
that's what I mean. So that could
and then
be
they were having
staged
trouble
too?
with it because there's a bit where she threw a toaster at him.
Yeah.
Liz had quite an arm.
And where'd she throw it?
Well, it was planned a very specific way, but they started anticipating, and she was nearly hitting him, and so he was getting out of the chair earlier and earlier. So she was throwing sooner and sooner. Pretty soon it was more like a football game. He was going deep, and she was hitting him in the end.
but so that's something that you would choreograph. It sounds like directing to me.
Yeah, it really is. It's anything where the actors. It is direction, but it's anything where the actors are physically at risk. If they're falling over, if they're subject to gravity.
They call someone like you in. So they call it a fight coordinator.
Right.
You wear...
Or it can be a huge battle with 60 some odd people and weapons and horses and cannons.
Too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I would think.
Yeah, that's
but
all
I
of
wouldn't
that.
think the other thing.
I've done 14 productions of Cyrano de Bergerac.
All different, of course, because you have to deal with different people.
That's right. And not always as a fight director. I performed in that show many times.
I was just going to ask you, you wear so many hats. As we said in the beginning, I think we touched on the acting and the teaching, directing, choreography.
Yeah.
Which one do you like the best?
Many years ago, I would definitely have said without hesitation acting. But the more I direct, the more I'm enjoying it. And I would hate to be told that I couldn't do one of them.
You know, the one thing with a director who's an actor, you have a empathy with your actors, don't you?
Yeah, that's true.
And they feel the difference.
Thank you. I think that's true. I also think it's really important for teaching. I'm one of the people in town who's actively working as an actor while simultaneously teaching. I think that it's a different perspective to be talking about that which works and not necessarily how I think it's supposed to be.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Well, I share from the perspective of the great books, of the great master teachers.
Good.
What was taught to me by my master teachers. I studied with Michael Kahn. I studied for many years with Larry Moss. I studied with Kyle Donnelly. I studied
big
with
names.
Charles Katkasakis. I mean, really, really, really fine. Nikos Sakaropoulos, fine acting teachers. So I talk about the things that they told me that I put into work, and then also things that I've had work for me.
And do you always remember those things? Do they just hammer at home? Like, do you hammer at home with your actors so that all of a sudden they have this awakening and they remember? That's what Bjorn told me.
I think so. I love to hear that back from people. They say, I got in trouble doing this, I was frozen, it wasn't working, and then I remembered that we said, and those are the great stories that, so satisfying to know that something kicked in for someone. No, really, it worked. Like you're surprised that, I started teaching.
I'm the teacher.
I mean, I was lucky to teach, apprentice to B.H. Barry for 7 years.
Oh, so you really did learn a lot.
I learned about teaching from him.
And it's also great that you know it and you're giving back to your community.
Yeah, that's
really
what it feels like. And also, I purposely, I know there's a lot of teachers in Los Angeles who charge a lot of money, and that's fine for them. But I purposely, not because it's not value related, but
Right.
I think it's very important that waiters and personal assistants and shop girls and guys are able to get really good training as well. And I make plenty of money as an actor. I make plenty of money. I'm producing a movie right now.
Oh yes.
I'm co-producing a movie called Belle. That's a $10 million picture that I'm producing with Edward Bass about the most prolific serial killer in American history.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we'll look for that.
So I don't have to make my money from actors.
So that's great. And
it's important that someone pays something to exchange energy.
I think so too, and I think you're doing a great job, and we thank you.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you, Bjorn. And don't go away, we'll be back with Tim Crouch. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm here with writer, actor, Tim Crouch, who premiered his first play, My Arm, in 2003. His second play, An Oak Tree, currently at the Odyssey Theater, is astonishing his audiences there, but it did that also in 2005 at the Edinburgh Festival and London Soho Theatre, and Off-Broadway, where he won an Obie for that. And then in 2007, he took home Best Male Performer, right?
Yep, I did.
At the Brighton Festival. And you live in Brighton.
Yeah, I do.
So during the last few years, you wrote another play, England.
Yep.
And it takes place in an art gallery?
Yeah, it's been the mainstay of my work for the last 2 years. Since
What is it?
It's a piece about a heart transplant, really. That's what it's about. But
In an art gallery?
Yeah, it was commissioned for an art gallery. So it's about the value of art and the value of life. And it's taking the idea of a transplant, of putting a work of theatre inside a gallery. So we transplant that art form into the receptacle for another art form. And the narrative of that piece talks about a search for health, really, a search for health at any cost, which includes the harvesting of a heart from Central Asia in return for a work of Western art. So there's a fairly thumping critique in the middle of that play.
Thumping
Yeah.
is a good word, because even in an oak tree, there's this drama that takes place that's, I don't know, harrowing.
Yeah,
And I said the audience is, I sat at the play the other night, and this is off the subject because I wanted to get to your other play, Author, first.
Yeah.
But I sat in the audience, and people don't know what to do. They stand there, sit there with their mouths open. What happens in an art gallery? Do you
Okay.
put chairs up too?
No, the first two acts, like two chambers of the heart. The first act, the audience stand. They're guided around an exhibition of work. So, you know, we were in New York for 2 weeks last year at the Chelsea Art Museum.
Oh, yeah.
The first act, they're there. The second act, they move to another space in that gallery where there are seats, and they do get to sit down.
I love that museum space.
Yeah, do you know it?
Yes,
then? It's
of course
beautiful,
I
right
know
by
it.
the river. We were there
Yes.
the day the plane landed on the Hudson. And
Oh,
it landed not far, in fact, from that gallery, and the roads around it were blocked with fire trucks. And
It's
everything.
down it's a block from Larry Gagosian's
Yeah,
gallery on the
it's
corner.
West
Yeah, it's
22nd, I
it's all
think
the
it is,
whole
right
thing.
by the water.
Okay, go back to The Author, which
Yeah.
was at the Royal Court Theatre. Fantastic theatre. I love it.
It's the most recent of my plays. It's the biggest of my plays.
It
'Cause
is.
I don't do big scale stuff. This show has four. The author has 4 actors. I've gone up from my first piece was a solo.
Oh, only one.
My second piece in Oak Tree is kind of 1.5. There's me and an actor who doesn't know the play. We'll talk about that.
Oh, that's right.
England is 2 actors, and then the author at the Royal Court last year is 4 actors.
Are you in it?
I am in it. I play a character called Tim Crouch, who is a writer, a playwright of another play.
So you write yourself into all of these.
Yeah, you know, I like it. I was an actor for nearly 15 years before I started to write.
Give me a little bit of background. Where were you born and raised?
I was born on a small seaside town on the south coast of England, not far from Brighton, which is where I live now. So I haven't moved that far away from home.
And did you go to school there?
Yeah, I went to school, went to university though in the west of England at a city called Bristol, where ironically my eldest child is now studying the same course at the same university.
Is that
I
right?
did. Yeah, she's gone to study drama as well. It's running in the family. Then we moved to Brighton, where we had our 3rd child. So we have a pretty big family there.
Brighton's a beautiful, tiny little.
Yeah.
It's tiny to me.
It's called London by the Sea, really, and it's the best of all possible worlds. You know, there's the coast, the land stops, and there's the water.
And the pavilion?
Yeah, the pavilion is there. There's a pier with a fun fair at the end, just like Santa Monica.
Right.
And London is 50 minutes away. You know?
So you're in the middle of the big city. When you were performing in London, did you just take the train back
by
and
and
forth?
large, I did just that. Yeah, it didn't take long. I had a little bike that folded up. I took it on the train, and I cycled across London, did the show, and then came back again.
Well, that takes me to folding your bicycle to an oak tree, because the set is very black box.
Yeah.
It's a black box.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there thinking, and it's at the Odyssey, I know he brought all this electronic stuff with him. Did he bring the chairs with him?
Yeah, no, he didn't. We had a correspondence with my producers where they sent me photographs of chairs, and we had a little correspondence back and forwards. I like this, it could be a different colour, and then the day I arrived, we painted the chairs that they had, because they'd got some black chairs. So that's the only scenery we have done, is we painted some chairs. But the nature of my work, Joan, is about the dematerialised quality of theatre. It's not about sets, it's not about props and costumes. It's about what we create in our minds, really, as an audience.
And that's what you do, because you're always whispering to the audience. You're always turning that electronics on and off. You're controlling the audio.
Do you know, it might look complicated to you. It's incredibly simple. It's almost analog. So this actor, let me explain. You probably know this because you saw the show. They meet me an hour before. They don't know the play. They haven't seen or read the play. It's the only proviso. I don't need to know who they are. I don't need to know what they look like.
You don't know anything about them?
Nope. They meet me an hour. We have a cup of tea. We have a chat. I don't tell them about the play. I give them some ideas and some principles that they might encounter in the play. And then the audience arrive, and then I invite that actor on stage, and I guide them through. Now, for half that show, they do wear a little headphone, a little earplugs, you know. And I have a microphone that enables me to speak loudly onto some speakers, which I didn't bring from the UK. I didn't bring the speakers. I did bring the microphone, though. It enables me to
Your own hand
speak
microphone?
there. Yeah, I brought that. And I flick a switch on the floor, and it channels my voice out of the speakers and into their ear. So I can talk to them absolutely privately. The audience can't hear a word I'm saying.
I know. I saw you. I was sitting in the front row, and I was sitting next to Peter Gallagher. And
when
Peter Gallagher said, hello. I went, hello, are you in the play? And he said, well, I just met with Tim.
Yeah.
We had a cup of tea.
Yeah.
I said, do you know what you're going to do? No, I have no idea. Have you seen it before? No.
Yeah, it's key. I can't police it, you know, I can't. If they want to cheat and they want to find out a bit, they can. I'm not going to stop them, but I do encourage them not to. I think it's more interesting for them if they just dive in.
He was fantastic.
He was fantastic, yeah. But then
How do you get these names? Because you've got hundreds of names.
Yeah, how do I remember the names of the actors in the show?
How do you get
the
actors?
Yeah. Well, I had a fantastic run of this play in New York, which is where the Obi came from, and I had a casting director there who found me 82 different actors. And people are into it, Joan. You know, it reminds me of the excitement that I felt when I started acting, you know, not knowing what was going to happen. And I think that appeals to a lot of actors, particularly in this city, you know, where they're sitting around waiting for the phone to ring, where they're holding out for the pilot or they're holding out for the TV thing. Here in the show, it's live, it's raw, it's theatre, it's pure theatre.
Tim, as I sat there, I thought, this is like an audition for an actor.
Yeah, but I hope
you're telling them what to do.
Yeah, but I hope you're not judging them like one might judge an actor in an audition.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
We're also telling a story in that play, and we tell a story that is better told if there is in the heart of that story someone who doesn't know from moment to moment what's happening next. So they play a character who is derailed by grief. That's what they play.
That's right.
And lo and behold, that character who is derailed is played by an actor who is also derailed from their traditional sort of process. They can't access that traditional process.
Right, that's
and for me, it deepens the telling of the story. It's not just a gimmick. The first thing that came with this play was the story. I didn't set about to make a play where there would be an actor who didn't know the play. I set out to tell a story. And I think the form of this story is told better if there is someone in the middle of it who doesn't know from moment to moment what's happening
Doesn't know
next.
the story.
Yeah,
but I thought you were a hypnotist.
Oh, well, that's part of the story, yeah. So that's the story of the play, is there are two characters. One is a stage hypnotist, and one is the father of a child who was killed by that stage hypnotist.
Yes.
And I use hypnotism as a sort of metaphor for art. That's what I do. And I think a lot of art, we're sitting in front of an Andy Warhol. You know, a lot of art is an act of suggestion. I tell you this piece is worth $1 million. Bingo, it's worth $1 million.
It's beautiful, right?
I tell you this.
If you tell me it's worth nothing?
Yeah, it's rubbish, yeah. So that act of suggestion exists all the way through art.
Yeah.
So that's a form of hypnosis. We stand in front of an Andy Warhol. In fact, the gallery piece that I was telling you about, we performed at the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh.
Oh, you did?
And we performed it in front of an $18 million Last Supper, one of his pink Last Suppers.
That was one of the last ones he did. I was in the studio.
Were you really?
I was at the studio when Rupert came in with a little picture of the Last Supper. And then he came in with this little maquette of the Last Supper. And Andy was looking at both of them. Well, let's take pictures of these.
Wow, my God. Well,
and that's what you were performing?
Yeah. So there we go. You know, classic example of this. It's self-actualization, really. If we say something is something, then it becomes so.
So you were a hypnotist, so I believed you were a hypnotist.
Yeah, no, I don't hypnotize. None of the actors in my show get hypnotized. I've never hypnotized anyone. I don't know how to do it. I wouldn't know where to start. But I use it as a metaphor for art.
Yeah.
And so here's a character played by me who has lost their ability. He can no longer hypnotize anyone. But he meets a guy, he doesn't recognize the guy, and the guy has been so derailed derailed by his grief that he's transformed a tree next to where his daughter died into his daughter, which in my rough estimation is a creation of a work of art. Certainly another act of suggestion.
But it's also a living thing.
Yeah, it's dealing with loss.
Right.
It's art's response to loss. There are lots of very serious themes going on in this play.
Very.
And there's a great sense of play, you know? We have scenes where I discuss with that actor the experience they're having on stage at that moment.
Okay.
But every word is scripted.
Every word is scripted, which is so hard to believe because it looks spontaneous. And with an actor who doesn't have a script in front of him, he'll come out and stand. He stood in front, and I saw you on the side whispering. What were you telling him?
I never give them acting notes. I give them very simple directions. An example of an instruction I might give that actor might be, Peter, fantastic. I want you to count to 5 in your head, in your own time, in your own way. Stand up, say. That's all I'll say. I'm not saying this scene is a sad one. I want you to give it some emotion. I give no emotional notes at all.
He was very emotional.
Well, he responded to the story.
Coming.
You know, the story is the story has a big heart in the middle of it.
And he was slow.
Yeah.
He was pensive.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you were telling him, be slow.
No. He won't know it, but he sets the rhythm. He sets the pace for the show. He doesn't know it, but I am following him.
Does it take longer with people who don't react to you? What do you do if somebody's a stick?
Yeah, okay, so my work is to be open to whatever that actor is bringing and to be responsive to whatever that actor is bringing. And if that actor isn't doing much, or if that actor is a block of wood, and I have had some actors who are blocks of wood, then my attempt in the performance is to try and release them, to free them, you know, so they can become a little bit more engaged and connected. And there are some actors who overwhelm me, and in those situations you'll see me take a real backseat, and I will become the block of wood, and I'll try and bring them down a little. So I am co-directing this show as we go.
That's
you know?
very interesting
I'm
how
credited as a
you would be back, because you're so prevalent on stage.
Well, you saw me pretty prevalent because of where Peter was. So Peter was this commanding presence.
Yeah.
So I felt I could be a little lighter and a little freer. Sometimes when the second actor is light and free, I might be a little slower, you know? So it's different for me every time I do the show.
That's fantastic. Before we leave, one thing that you said is this is what you won't see during the show.
Yeah,
you say that you won't see certain things. You'll see things, but you won't see things. There's missing things. Yeah. And you expected us to fill in those spaces?
Okay, well, what do I say? There's the speech in the play that says you'll see nothing phony, nothing fake tonight.
Right.
No plants, no actors. The people you see on stage tonight, apart from myself, are genuine volunteers. It's a quote from the play. I sense you won't see anything phony, even though you will see we have 50% women, 50% men do this part. The women still play a father of a child who's been killed. So even though they are not what they say they are, I don't believe in art that that's a lie.
Oh, right.
Do you understand me? That's not a lie.
Right.
In art, you can do whatever you like. You can say whatever you like, and it's an act of collective suggestion, and there's a contract of belief that exists that will transform me into the Prince of Denmark. Do you know what I mean? It'll transform me into anything. So I don't sense that we're going to lie tonight, and I am visible in all the mechanics of the show. They're all visible. Right. You might not hear every instruction I give, but you will see me giving instructions. And compared to a rehearsal for a play that's gone on for 6 weeks and every decision that's been made has been snucked under the carpet, here everything is above board, you know, and true, I think.
Right. Well, you took our breath away, and I thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure, Joan.
And we can look for this all over.
Yeah, all over the world.
All over.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor. Keep writing, and email at jaquinn1@AOL. Bye.